Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on how to successfully upgrade a heavily customized solution to Dynamics 365 Business Central. We want to stipulate that all people that are currently still in the GoToMeeting can actually log on to GoToWebinar through the link that is posted by Thomas of Simplanova. In the call today, we have Petras, who will host the webinar. And who will give the presentation. Also, we have Erna present from Simplanova to answer your questions, Wouter van Kolm from the partner sales, and Jelmer Vet, myself from the partner sales, to also help you answer the questions that you might have. There are some household things that I would like to say. All questions that you might have during the presentation will be handled afterwards in the Q&A session. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat. We will pick up the questions afterwards, and an FAQ of all questions will be sent as well after the webinar. Also, a recording of the webinar will be posted on YouTube if you want to share this with some colleagues or want to watch it again afterwards. And you will receive a follow-up mail with all this information in the next few days. With that being said, I would like to give a word to Petros, who will now kick off the actual content. Thank you.
Thank you, Elmer, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. I'm happy to see such a big audience over here. Without any further delay, I'd like to begin with the webinar. My name is Petras Butenas. I am the CEO at Simplanova, and today we're going to talk about upgrades. And before introducing you to my agenda, I would like to go through 3 reasons why this topic is still important. Let's discuss the 3 reasons why we're having this webinar. The first one is that upgrades are still taking way too long, and it makes it hard to sell. This is an issue shared by many partners over here, by many partners that we work with, and we'll try to today to have some tips and tricks on how to make them more efficient and how to work on upgrades more efficient. The other reason is that majority of the users today are still running the classic version of NAV. The unofficial estimates that we get from Microsoft are that it's up to 70% of the whole end user base which are still running 2009 or older versions. And the third reason is that well, some partners that we speak to are postponing the upgrades because of the size of the projects. That could be because they don't have the resources for the project, or they cannot commit to that, or they fear that it would not be a very successful one. So we wanted to have a webinar on how to solve this issue, on how to better upgrade the heavily customized solutions. So on my agenda today, I have many topics, so I will not be able to get deep down into any of it, but I want to have as much information as possible. And in the next 45 minutes, I'll go through, first of all, what is Simplanova and what do we do here. Then I'd like to talk about Business Central what is that and what are the limitations and should we upgrade to Business Central. So this is the first part, and the second part is on the upgrade strategies. We'll see how to pick the right upgrade path, how to save time on consulting effort, how to prepare for the upgrade, how to scope for it, delegate tasks, and some tips and tricks for large database migration and heavily customized solution object conversion. And we'll wrap up with some things which could go wrong, things to take note of, what to do for the big upgrade projects. So what is Simplanova? We are a partner development center. We are a Microsoft partner ourselves, and we work through the Dynamics channel. We help partners when they need more skills, more resources, or if they want to make their upgrade process more efficient. Over the last 5 years, we have participated in 200 NAV upgrade projects. And there are two main reasons why partners choose Simplanova to help them with the upgrades. First one is that we have a team specializing in NAV upgrades, a team which is very good at what they do and who understand the small issues that are in there. And the second reason that they choose us is because we have, over the time, we have developed a number of improvements on how to automate the process. So this includes report, data port, matrix form converters, our own merging tool, and a number of smaller advancements which could be used in the upgrade process. So we mainly work with partners here in Europe and in North America, and we have a number of partners that we work with, and we have also a company which helps us to work with, which is called the Partner Seals. This is a company started by our dear friends Peter De Bruin and Jelmer Wet. So if you're, well, whom you probably already know, and if you get in touch with any of them, so that could be concerning Simplanova. So one of the things that they do at Partner Sales is they help to deliver the message we have at Simplanova to the partner community in Europe. So let's start off with Dynamics 365 Business Central. The cloud version of Business Central has been released on April 2nd for a number of countries. And probably the best thing about it that I like, comparing to the for financials version, which was available before, is that you can have individual customizations. So you can customize the code you can customize the solution through extensions. But on the other hand, you cannot use C-side there, and you can't use .NET. You can't change the standard objects, and you cannot also migrate the data. So if you're migrating from Dynamics NAV, you have to use rapid start services, which means that you can only migrate things such as customer list, vendor list, and you can have all the transactions. So these are the drawbacks. So what does that mean? It means that it would most probably suit the small customers that you have, which don't need the historic data. But for the heavily customized solutions, it might not, well, we wouldn't recommend upgrading them to the cloud version. Most of them will probably need changes in the standard code, in the standard objects, and most of them will probably need their historic data. So that's why this is not what we would recommend upgrading to. We would, however, recommend upgrading to the on-premise version. So what is the on-premise version? Well, this is essentially Dynamics NAV. This is essentially what we would call Dynamics NAV 2019, and it will be released in autumn. We expect that to be announced on either Directions North America, which will start September 30th, or Directions EMEA, which will start October 30th. And what we already know is that you will be able to customize using CL and extensions and Visual Studio Code. So both ways will be possible, and the upgrade process will be similar to that we have right now, for example, upgrading to NAV 2018. So this will probably this is our recommended strategy to upgrade for most of the heavily customized solutions out there. So if you want an upgrade right now, upgrade to NAV 2018. If you want to upgrade to Business Central, then you'd have to wait for it to be released this autumn. And it will have all the NAV functionality, and the upgrade process would not be that different. Now, there are rumors, which we cannot deny or confirm at the moment, that C-side will not be available from the version which will be released in the autumn of 2019. So you should still start investing in learning extensions and Visual Studio Code, so you could be prepared for that. That is something we are definitely doing, because if you're doing an upgrade right now, I mean, in autumn to the new version of Business Central, then you could probably still forget about using extensions. You probably not need that, because you can still you can still use CL, but you definitely have to start investing in that because the future is in extensions and in Visual Studio Code. So our strategy here is to, when upgrading to Business Central, is to wait for the on-prem version, at least for most of the heavily customized solutions out there. What are the upgrade strategies in general? There are two main strategies: re-implementation or upgrading as is. And the first one is when you have to rewrite all the code, when normally you don't also save the transaction data, don't have the historic data. And the reason why many partners choose it, the reason why I hear them choosing the strategy, is because they believe that it's cheaper. This is not the reason why you should use this strategy. This is not the reason why you should implement, because if done the right way, upgrading could be more efficient and could be cheaper than re-implementing. The reason why partners should choose re-implementation is when the business process has changed. So for example, if the business has been selling ice cream and now started selling cars, that business shouldn't upgrade. It should definitely re-implement. So each case is different. Of course, it's not that simple in every case. You have to review what's still being used, what is the business plan for the future, and then decide whether it makes sense to re-implement. The other strategy, which is called upgrade as is not also recommended by us for the heavily customized solution. We would recommend that for small upgrades, for the almost not customized solutions, or for upgrades such as from 2015 to 2017, when there's not a lot of work, and when it would not make a lot of sense to spend time on consulting the customer on discussions for what needs to be rewritten. But for the heavily customized solution, we would not recommend and we would not help you if you want just upgrading everything as is. For example, if you're upgrading from the version 5.0, you should definitely spend time with the customer. You should definitely review the business process, discuss what is the plan of the customer for future, and then decide what is the best way to do it. So that's why we call this the smart upgrade option. This is the third thing that we have as a strategy, where you kind of combine the both here, because you don't simply do the upgrade as is. We always recommend consulting the customer, removing and refactoring some of the functionality, but at the same time, half of the solution or majority of the solution is still being used by the customer. So you take that, you upgrade that, but at the same time, you remove what's available in the new version, and you add the functionality that's was used before. As for the data, it's up for you and the customer to decide whether the customer really needs all the transaction data. It is a good idea to review the solution and start fresh, because it will be faster for the customer to work with. But if the customer can't really do that, if the customer needs the data for reporting, then you should migrate the data, and we'll have some tips and tricks for migrating at the end of the presentation of this webinar. So as soon as you've decided what upgrade strategy to use, the next step would be preparing for the upgrade and understanding what is the business needs. I have 3 tips here. First one is get customer committed. If the customer will not get committed to spend any time with you on discussing what's needed, on discussing what's not necessary, then it's a failure from the very beginning. Then you would not know what to upgrade, and if you simply move everything as is, it would not be considered as a successful upgrade. The next advice I have is discuss the needs and commit from time from your side. If you can't really commit time, if you can't really spend consultant hours on your customer, then again, it's a failure from the very beginning. And the last tip I have is use object usage tool. What is object usage tool? It's a tool developed by us for tracking customer activity. You can download it from free using this link, and you can install it on the customer production database. you can select the users you want to track. You can select the object types you want to track and run it for 3 months. The output is an Excel sheet where you can see each object, how many times it was run by the users that you've tracked. Of course, notify your customer that you'll be doing that you'll be tracking their activities. And this should minimize the time needed on the discussions with the customer, because then you can say that these objects have been used by you in the last 3 months and these haven't been used. So let's review the ones that haven't been used and discuss if we should take them to the new version. And what we see is that in some cases it's half of this reports, for example, that should not be upgraded. In some cases it could be even 80% of the reports that are not used but are inside the system. And so that means that they should be removed. So when you're done evaluating what needs to be upgraded, you can start scoping the upgrade. You can start making the quote for your customer. The best advice I have here is change the current way of how you make the quote for your customer. Most of the partner quotes and the quoting process I've seen over the years was like this. This is a bit simplified, of course, but this is just to show you what not to do. It shows the number of objects that are inside the solution. Then normally the partner has a multiplier for that. In this case, for example, all forms are allocated half an hour, and the end result is that in this case that forms would need 56 hours. So you could see the total in this case is 286 hours. But what happens if this particular solution has most of the forms matrices, very complex ones, and you need, for example, spend 4 hours on each matrix? Then this would mean that the current estimate is way off, and you would have delays in your delivery. You would have too big costs for the upgrade, and it would be, well, a failure for you then. So what you should do about that? Well, my advice would be invest some time in the quoting process and measure the complexity of the objects instead of measuring the number of objects and multiplying them by these numbers. If you don't have the resources to do that, then compare that to an upgrade part estimate. So you can write to companies like Simplanova, where we provide free quote for you, and you could at least compare your own quote to that quote and have a better understanding where the quote should be, or how the other companies quote the solution upgrade, so you could have a more reliable estimate. My other advice here would be when scoping, identifying the people who would actually work on the upgrade. So first of all, identify the people who have the most experience there. And secondly, identify people who have experience in different parts of upgrade. People who have experience in merging, and people who have more experience in testing, and the others might have more experience in data migration. And if you know that these people will be working on the upgrade, your estimates would probably be a bit different than people who don't have any experience there. And the general rule here is that not all developers are the same. So don't expect your senior skilled developer who is very good at building your add-on to be very good at upgrading, because if the person doesn't have experience on upgrades, then he'd not be the best choice for doing your upgrade activities, because he'd have to learn this, because it's a different experience than that of an upgrade. So when you're done scoping and quoting the customer, and when you've sold the upgrade, the next step is dividing all that into smaller tasks and delegating them to your team. I have a simplified plan here of the tasks of a standard upgrade. Normally, you would start off with upgrading the standard tables and code units, and this is a task which would require people with merging experience. And this is a tasks where you could allocate more people. You could allocate on a bigger project 2 to 5 people here, depending on your delivery dates and on your planning. When you're done merging the standard tables and code units, the next step is the test data migration. We would normally allocate one person to these tasks. It makes more It makes more sense to do it for one person. After the test data migration, you can start migrating the custom tables, custom code units, forms, data ports, and menu suites. After that, you can work with the reports. And when you're done with the objects, the testing phase starts, where we would recommend people who understand NAV testing the solution, people who know what to test, because otherwise you'd have some people just pressing buttons and searching for errors. Some tips for testing phase. First of all, divide the testing phase into a few stages. The first stage is your testing stage, where you as a partner test the solution. And the second stage is the customer acceptance stage. This is something which some partners forget to do, but it's a very good idea to involve the end users into the testing, because if it's a big solution, you should expect errors to come up, and the customer is your best source of information of how the solution should behave. And another good thing is that if the end user is involved in testing, you should expect the end user less angry if there are any bugs after the go live, and the customer feels more involved in the process, and customer then feels a bit more responsibility for the upgrade too. Another good idea is to have testing scenarios prepared by your people who understand the solution, or with the help of the end user, so that the people who are testing would understand the solution they're testing and would know what to look for, so that they wouldn't be simply pressing buttons. So when you're done testing, then there's the go live stage. My best advice here would probably be to prepare a plan for rollback, a plan for what if things go south. That's always a good idea. When before the go live or after the go live, you should also have the end user training, which is again an important part not to miss. Normally, what we see for the heavily customized solution upgrades from 2009 or older versions is that partners sell 2 to 5 days for the key user training. And when you're done all that, upsell for new functionality, upsell for new developments, but don't do that before you're finished upgrading. Now, the reason why I have the implementing new functionality crossed out here is that it's never a good idea to do that. It might be a good idea from the sales perspective to sell a new add-on implementation or new module development together with the upgrade project, and do everything while the upgrade is performed and before they go live. This could turn out to be your worst nightmare when you start testing the solution and when issues start to come, because you might find it hard to identify if the issues come from the new add-on that has been implemented or from the upgrade, and who's responsible for the issues caused. So my advice is, do not mix these two things. As soon as the upgrade is done, start implementing the new functionality then. Wait for some time and then start implementing the new functionality then. So this is project plan example, a simplified example for one of the partners that we've helped to upgrade their end user in pharmaceuticals. This is just to show you how we've handled that. I'd like to go through each and every stage here. So we always start with a project meeting with the partner and the responsible people from the partner side to discuss the problematic areas and to discuss the project plan. The first step is preparing the environment, where we have to prepare all the, and the partners would normally have to do if they do the upgrade, databases, restoring databases, uploading the license, and also merging all the add-ons to the target database. In this case, there were 8 add-ons, so it took us 40 hours total to prepare, just to prepare the environment. As soon as that was ready, we started merging the standard tables and code units. As you can see, we have estimated 102 hours for this stage. So 2.5 resource was allocated to do that in 1 week time. After that, we've started simultaneously migrating the data and merging the forms, which took us 4 weeks, but the actual scope for that was 12 weeks, so 3 people were working on this stage to have it on time. After that, we've merged the standard reports. After the standard reports, the same people started upgrading the custom objects. Everything except the custom reports. So the week 13, we started testing everything except the custom reports. And the reason why we split all that, and this is in a lot of times it's a good idea to do it, to split it into these parts, because the partner could start testing and the testers could start working after on the week 14th. So as soon as everything is except the reports are done, the testers can start testing the solution, can start testing all the functionality, and we can start upgrading the reports after that. So as soon as the custom reports were upgraded and tested on week 21st, the solution was released upgraded, and testing was continued for the custom reports. And after partner testing, the end user has started testing, and after end user testing, the live data migration started, and the go live could have been done. So this is one of the examples that we had recently. Let's now discuss the tips and tricks for a large database migration. I have 3 stages over here. So the first one is preparation. So what you can do to make it a successful experience. The first and one of the most important tips is invest in hardware and invest in your hard drives first. Use SSD disks, it's a must, and have at least 3 times the space that the database is, so you would not, well, you would have enough for backups and for your test runs. The more RAMs you have, the better. CPU is also important. Having more cores would not make a big difference, so you may not invest more into having more cores. Another important thing is monitoring. When the test data migration starts, you have smaller steps there, so you should not leave that process running and just returning when you have the time to it. If you want this to run smoothly and in time, and you would probably want to run it in time because there would be other people waiting for when the data is available for testing. You should have someone constantly monitoring this task and constantly monitoring all the things that come up during the test data migration. SQL backups, that's also a very important thing to have points of return. As you know, there are a lot of steps during the migration process, and if one of the steps fail, if you don't have the backups, you have to go all the way from the very beginning, and it could just cost you too much time in the data migration process. So make backups in every step. That will of course cost you some time, but this is a good cautionary method to save time for later. Now, also analyze the tables, analyze them during step 1 and step 2 of migration. See which ones cost you the most of the time, and use commit functions to save time if you need to roll back if things are not running good enough when you're running the heavy tables. Now, for the dimensions, it's a good idea to make sure that dimensions in the dimension table are existent, that the values are existent which are existent in the tables. Also prepare the database, prepare the properties, set the security mode to standard, set the recovery mode to simple. This will allow you for better performance. Also disable SIFT and vSIFT indexing during migration and enable it only at the very end. This will also improve your performance during test data migration. For toolkits, as you may know, the most painful parts are step 1 and step 2 when you're converting from classic. Optimize the toolkit. I will not get deep into this topic. There's plenty written about this online. If you need any more information, please write to our team and we'll share all that. Use commit function as mentioned for better performance, and use SQL queries where possible. This will also improve greatly your performance. One of the examples is for the data deletion. For later steps, you would normally run companies migration in parallel, but you might have a situation where 2 companies use the same table. So for that, you might need to run the companies migration one by one, so in serial mode. For SQL timeouts, extend that to 6 or even 12 hours. It's a large database that you're migrating, so it's a good idea to extend this because it will take time for processes to run. For error handling, where possible, use PowerShell scripts. It's also for the better performance. And my last and one of the best tips I have for the live migration to improve your timing there. If you're migrating a database as big as 1 terabyte, you cannot really run 1 terabyte migration during the weekend on the go live because you might not be in time. So what is the advice here? The advice is to run additional test migration on the backup, which you would make on Sunday or Monday, and Monday morning, I mean. If your go live is planned on Saturday, you should then only make a backup for the 1 week, so a lot less data there. And you should run that 1 week's data. You should migrate during the weekend that only that 1 week. Join those two databases, the one that has been migrated a week before, the big one, and the one that has been migrated on the week, on only using the week's data. You can join those 2 databases and save a lot of time on the weekend, save a lot of time for migrating the big database. That's probably one of the best advices we could have for migrating the big databases for on the go live. So data migration is one part of the solution upgrade. The other one is migrating objects. And what we've seen in the many upgrade codes that we've done is that up to 90% of the upgrade cost is in the object upgrade. It means that this is the most important part, and it means that we have to spend some time on understanding what we could do to save time here. I have 2 best advices here. First one is use people who do upgrades. As discussed earlier in this webinar, any senior developer is not what you would want working on your upgrade. Use people who have experience. And my other advice is use automated conversion tools. There are tools available. It is not a good idea to rewrite every object from scratch. Well, unless you want to change most of it, then you can rewrite. But in most cases, you need the same report. You just need to tweak it a bit. So this is not, you shouldn't even consider doing that manually. So automated conversion tool use is a must. And by using that, you can cut the cost of upgrade as much as by half, because you're simply automating that part of the upgrade. And here I would like to take a few moments to introduce you to one of the solutions that's available for the reports, which is called Simplanova Report Converter. It's a solution which helps you automate the report conversion, the C-side report conversion to native NAV reports, RDLC. Now, Simplanova solution does not require any yearly fees, and once you upgrade the reports, it's IP of the partner or the end user. Simplanova doesn't add any code to the report and does not own the report, so they could be in any solution, in any NAV solution. It's a very simple process which does not require any reporting skills additional to what you would normally have for RDLC. And I would like to take a few moments to show how this tool works before I get back to things that could go wrong in an upgrade. I'll show my remote desktop connection here. Here you can see my Kronos 2017 database, where I have Simplanova tools installed. And on my departments, I have the classic converters here. I'll open the Simplanova classic converters. And here in the main window where I can start converting my reports, I've selected two reports today, which I'd like to show in this webinar. This is my 2009 R2 database. I have two reports I'd like to convert: the chart of accounts report, which I'll select, and the sales invoice. So I'll export them to a text file. I'll call them webinar April 17th. And in this text file, I'll have the two reports I want to convert with Simplanova tools. Let's open the text file. Here you can see the webinar. I'll modify the name a bit. I'll add the number 70. This is the chart of accounts, and I'll also find the sales invoice report. I'll also add the number 17. And I'll start importing them here. So what I need is the 2009 report. Okay, so there's an error here. Okay, the name is simply too long. It seems that the 70 number cannot be here, so I'll delete the webinar from here. Change it once more. And once again, I'll re-import it to this solution. So now what the solution does, it reads the reports, it reads the complexity of the reports. As you can see, the chart of accounts is complexity 1, the sales invoice it's complexity 2. It means how many license points are charged for converting these two reports. I've selected both of them and I'll start converting them. So the process is as easy as that. I've just uploaded the exported classic reports to the solution, imported them here, and I started the conversion. And in a few moments, I'll have them available in my solution. Okay, so two objects have been converted and imported. So the chart of accounts is a simple report. I'll simply open it in my classic version and preview it with data. Here it is. And I'll also do the same with the RDLC version, the converted version. So here's my accounts report in RDLC version, and here it is in the classic version. So you can see that both these reports are the same. So let's see the sales invoice, which is a more complex and more interesting report. So this report did not convert, did convert, but did not compile at first. It says the status that it is important, and the reason why it is not converted is because it has some obsolete data in it, which the converter does not manage. So this is something which is still left for manual work. So I'll find this in my 2017 database. Here it is, my sales invoice 17. I'll try and compile it, and I'll see what does not exist in here. I see that the table 359 does not exist in the new version, so I'll simply delete the reference I have here to that table and try and compile this report again. I'll have to comment out some code also to see the layout of this report. And in a few moments, we'll see how this report looks in the new version. So this is just a few things. If you are interested in how to actually modify this code in order to use this, you can all find it in Simplanova's YouTube channel, where it is explained how to do it. So the report is now compiled. I'll save it, and I can see now that the data set has been created automatically by this tool. It is over here, and I can see the layout of the report in the report builder. You can see that all the fields are in places, all the properties are set, so you don't need to do that manually. It probably could save you a day or two to convert a report like this. And finally, we can also run this report with data from my tool, from the Simplanova tool. I can run it and see how it looks with data. So here is the report in the RDLC version. You can see that everything is in place, including the VAT calculation. And for the old version, this is the 2009 version, I'll also run it to preview with data, just to compare. Here it is. One thing it does not have is the logo, which is not put in the classic version of my solution. Everything else is in place and it's the same as it was in the old version. So this was just a brief look at one of the converters that Simplanova has, just to show you how easy it is and to convert the reports automatically, how easy it is to convert objects automatically. And it really makes a lot of sense to use these conversion tools in the upgrade in the heavily customized solutions to save as much as half cost of the whole solution. One of my last slides is things that could go wrong in an upgrade. So first thing is the rollback plan. If you don't have that for the go live, things could go south. Be prepared. That's something which we could not overemphasize in any of our presentations. Another problem that we see in the upgrades that we do and our partners do is poorly trained end users. If the end user did not receive good training, people might get furious after the upgrade, and people might start registering support issues, which are not actually support issues. So these could be things like, where are my shortcuts? Why are they not there anymore? So things which you could prepare for and which you could teach the customer. But you should invest in the customer training to prepare for that and save your and your customer time. Non-informed users. Well, this is another problem which we have seen where not all of the key users were informed about the upgrade. And it was a big surprise that when the actual go live happened. And well, you can understand how furious some of the users were when they saw the new system. I mean, they were happy at first that the system was upgraded, but it might cause some issues too. Inexperienced testers, well, that's an issue. Partners could have at their place if people who don't understand NAV and who don't understand how NAV should behave start testing. If they simply start pressing buttons and searching for error messages, this will not lead to successful testing. This would simply lead to too many issues or too little issues. Well, it could be both ways. Unrealistic estimates, this is something which could cause failure from the very beginning if you don't invest time in preparing quoting calculations. If you don't invest time in preparing quotes, you could be way off and you could start losing money there. Now, the following issue, which is called new SQL installed in customer environment, is something more interesting. Something we've seen when partners did the go live, and as you know, it is a good idea to have a new SQL with the new version that you upgraded to. And if you're doing the go live and if you're installing that to the customer environment, make sure that the customer also has that new SQL, because we've seen one case where the customer did not have the new SQL version installed. It was not prepared for that, and well, that caused a delay in the whole go live. I mean, the go live could not happen just because there were some issues with installing SQL instead of actual go live. Backups. I could not overemphasize that too. Have backups during the test data migrations. Have backups in the go live stage. Have backups when you're preparing for the project. Make note of that in almost every step that you do. And the final point is when I would not consider a successful upgrade is if the customer continues doing business as usual. If you've upgraded everything, if you've installed new functionality, if new functionality is available for the customer, everything has been refactored, and if the customer is not using any of that, if the customer is still doing everything the way he used to do, then it is not a successful upgrade. It is something that we should not consider as a successful upgrade. In order to prevent that, you need to spend time consulting, you need to spend time in customer training. My last slide before the questions to show you the quoting process of Simplanova. If any of the participants here today are interested in a free fixed price proposal, then please connect to our team through sales@simplanova.com or through our website. We have a quoting portal where you can sign up for free and upload the FOB file of your customer solution, and we get back with a fixed price proposal within 1 week time, and then you receive the fixed price proposal, and you can compare that to your own, or you could sell that to your customer. So I would like to thank you everyone for listening to our presentation, and in a few minutes we'll begin answering your questions.